Now, Washington Mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. And AM 630. WMAL.
It's 8:37 in the nation's capital. Mornings on the Mall with Brian Wilson and Larry O'Connor.
You know, in the last few minutes, the jobless claims came out, the weekly jobless claims. They jumped to 439,000. They had been expected to hit 375. Isn't it interesting that they jumped right after the election?
4 more years.
Yeah.
4 more years. We've been talking about the president's press conference yesterday, and of course, listen, the president got 8 million fewer votes this time around. He lost 2 states that he had last time around, and he claims a mandate to raise taxes. Guess who's going to vociferously disagree?
I bet that there's this guy named Grover Norquist who has a different opinion.
That is the man. He's our guest now. Grover, talk to me about the president's mandate to raise your taxes.
Well, it's interesting. If you looked at the campaign he ran and how he won, he went out to Ohio and other states months and months ago and ran ads said that Romney gives people cancer and kills them and shuts down businesses and is a very awful, icky person. And they trashed him as an individual. What you didn't see were ads explaining the wonderful economy that Obama had created, the world peace that Obama had created, or his vision for the future. I mean, you didn't get a conversation of what he wanted to do, except in some sort of vague outlines, like some people should pay a little more in taxes. Well, it's not quite exactly a plan. We also had a collection of people who did run on their records. That was called the U.S. House of Representatives. The Republicans had a majority. They voted twice for the Ryan plan, which brought the budget into balance, which reformed taxes, taking top rates down to 25% and simplifying the tax code without increasing the overall tax burden, reformed entitlements, did all the things that you'd want a grown-up congressman to do. And instead of being defeated for talking about saving Medicare and reforming it, they were reelected. Everyone knows that they oppose the president's impulses to raise taxes in general. So if the president wants to claim that because he was sort of secretly desiring huge and bigger government, although he didn't talk about it in his ads or in his hundreds of millions of dollars worth of ads, we also do have a mandate for the House of Representatives to stop any tax increase.
So, Grover Norquist, I mean, something is going to happen here during the lame duck session. Either we go over what they're calling the fiscal cliff and the automatic sequestration cuts go into effect, or they reach some sort of deal. Now, obviously, you have the Republican leadership and most of the Republicans that are in the House have signed your famous tax pledge that says that they will not raise taxes. As we've just articulated, the president is intent on raising taxes. What are you advising? I'm sure that the congressmen are pulling you aside and say, Grover, help me out here. I don't want to raise taxes, but something's got to give. What are you advising them?
Well, the good news is that the congressmen and senators who are elected making a written commitment to their constituents in their state and the American people that they wouldn't raise taxes don't have to check with me. I'm, despite Mr. Biden and Harry Reid's analysis, I'm not part of that equation. That's a relationship they have with their voters. They made that written promise in getting elected. Now, 2 years ago, we had exactly the same situation we have now. Democratic president, Democratic Senate, Republican House. 2 years ago, Obama took the lead and said, I'm scared at how lousy my economy is doing, and we're going to continue the tax cuts because to raise taxes on an economy this week would be very bad for the American economy. The economy isn't any better than it was 2 years ago. There's all the reasons to extend all the tax cuts as is. I think we should do it permanently, but at least for 2 years, are still there. I still think that's the most likely thing to happen. What would argue against it is Obama thinks this is 2008, and he needs to look and realize it's actually 2010. What the American people ratified was not the Obama elected by 9 million votes and sweeping the nation and 256 Democrats in the House of Representatives and 60 Democrats in the Senate. What they ratified were 30 Republican governors and a majority of state legislatures run by Republicans, as well as a Republican House and enough senators, Republican senators, to filibuster anything the president might want in the Senate.
Yeah.
We didn't make him king. He did get across the finish line. The only president in history who got elected with a weaker reelection than his initial election. There's a real signal there that people were not exactly ecstatic. He may have convinced people, that he He ran and he got a mandate not to be Mitt Romney. Okay, he doesn't have to be Mitt Romney for the next 4 years. But to argue that the American people have actually signed on to trillions more in debt and trillions more in taxes is overstating his case.
All right, let me ask you this, though. I was watching Fox News Sunday last weekend, and Bill Kristol was on there, and I heard Bill Kristol say, I'm paraphrasing here, are the Republicans really going to fall on their sword over a few millionaires, half of them who are Democrats and Hollywood? And are they really going to go to the mat to save a few millionaires from having to pay higher taxes? What do you say to that?
Well, and I'm sure Bill is kind to his children and animals, but he's not much of a strategic thinker. The reason why Obama wants to talk about raising taxes on 2% of the population, which also happens to be half of all business profits in the country, so it's a massive tax increase on small business profits, is that the real goal is once you either get that and turn around and say, oh my goodness, we still have $7 trillion in debt, over the next decade. It's a drop in the bucket. It's not anywhere near what it doesn't solve the problem of Obama's overspending. It doesn't pay for Obama's overspending to tax a few people a lot. Then you will turn and demand an energy tax, which will cost families $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. We've already seen he was willing to drive up the cost of gasoline, doubling it by restricting federal land exploration as well as offshore exploration. So his policy of higher energy costs and taxes, cap and trade was supposed to be a way to hide an energy tax. That didn't work because people realized it was an energy tax.
Right.
Now they wanted to hide it as an energy tax by making it sound like it has something to do with the environment. They just want the money. So when somebody thinks they're being clever by saying, why don't you give the Democrats a little tax increase, and that's the end of the conversation, you're going, the world doesn't end in a week.
Yeah.
Obama's plan is talk about taxing the rich as a feint and then taxing everybody, either because he said, well, they wouldn't let me tax the rich, so I'm going after you, or, well, we taxed the rich and it didn't amount to a hill of beans in terms of the cash that I'm planning to spend. You can't turn America into Europe without an energy tax or a value-added tax.
Grover Norquist, thank you so much for joining us, and keep up the good fight. I know you're going to be in the middle of it for the next 2 months.
Take it easy.
Thanks,
Look forward
Grover.
to being with you.
Thanks, Grover.
Grover Norquist from Americans for Tax Reform.